Hi everyone, I hope you're doing fine. We're starting the next live stream. I'm so excited about this. I planned this live stream for a few months. Hi, how are you doing? How is your weekend going? Let me know if you can see me, if you can hear me. I will try to find our guest. Let me know, how are you doing? How is your weekend going? What are your plans? Oh, Lee is here. Hi, Lee. So nice to see you here. I'm so excited because, oh, hey, Erin. I'm so excited because this live stream we've planned 1 year ago. And at the same time, I had my skydiving. So there was no internet connection. So we weren't able to talk with Erin from OCD Set Free. So now I hope everything will work. So let's try once again. I hope you're doing fine and you have an amazing weekend. So here in Poland, sun is shining, but it is -7 Celsius degrees. So it's incredible hot. Hot, not hot. Cold. Oh, Erin is here. I will try to add you to this live. You have to accept. Yes, here also it's a lot of snow. Hi everyone, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you found time to join here to listen to Erin and me. Go live. Let's see. Okay, we have to try once again. All sunny and hot in Western Australia. I can imagine. I'm trying to accept you, Erin, but yay!
Hi.
Hi. Wait a second. I will.
Can you hear me?
One moment. One moment. Maybe. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Now. Yeah. Perfect. We've got this. Finally.
I know. It's been forever since we have been able
It's
to
been
get together.
forever. I remember that I was so sad when I had no internet connection during after my skydiving, and we tried to do this live stream anyway. But
I
then,
know.
so I think it is 7 months ago. It was 7 months ago.
Wow, was it that long ago?
Yeah, probably. But
Wow. I think this is our
but
third attempt. So they say three times is a charm.
yeah, absolutely. And we had an opportunity to meet together in Chicago. So I was so excited about this.
It was such a surprise to run into you, but it was such a pleasure to meet you in person.
Yeah, that was a really pleasure, and I hope we can meet again in Seattle. Are you going
Absolutely.
there? Yeah.
Absolutely. I have not figured out my summer plans yet, but um, try to go as often as possible. So I've actually, I hadn't been, oh, it's snowing here in Georgia. Actually, it just started snowing.
Oh,
Um, I just saw it through my window. But yeah, I had taken a little bit of a break. I want to say after I had my son, and I hadn't gone. And then when I ran into you, it was the first time in a couple of years that I had since I had been there. And so it was just so refreshing to be back in that community, in that space. And so, and even just to meet folks with lived experience and to meet people that
yeah.
we make these connections with digital world. It's so meaningful. So happy to
Yeah,
know you.
absolutely. Absolutely. Because, you know, it is really nice to talk through social media, but meeting someone in person it is absolutely something amazing and incredible. And I'm so glad that I decided to go to Chicago last year. And yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and you were there for, were you there? Did you extend your trip?
once again,
Did you extend your trip? Like, had you gone before the conference and after?
before the conference.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I had
Okay. And then you
an
went straight
opportunity.
back.
Yeah, and after conference, I flew back to Poland, but this year I plan to be also a bit earlier there. And yeah, because you know, the time during conference, uh, there is not much time to speak with everyone, to talk with everyone, to meet your friends. Conference is pretty overwhelming.
Yes.
So I really want to spend time with my friends and focus on these connections because this is incredibly important to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you get to go again.
Yay! So, Erin, I think we can start with our topic. But first, before we start, can you please tell us, because maybe not everyone knows you, and maybe not everyone from your followers knows me. So we can just introduce really quickly, and we can start.
Absolutely. Would you like me to go first?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay, awesome. Well, so my name is Erin Nee, and I am a licensed clinical social worker and psychotherapist in the metro Atlanta area of Georgia, that's in the southeast of the United States. The name of my practice is OCD Set Free. We work with an amazing group of clinicians. I love my team, and also we run an organization that is focused on supporting BIPOC individuals that are also living with OCD. We on the OCD Set Free side, are able to support individuals living with OCD in Georgia, Florida, and Alabama, so all Southeast states. And then on the other BIPOC lived experience side, which it's called ERP Kaleidoscope. We also have a handle at ERP Kaleidoscope that actually we're able to serve people across the US and internationally. And so it's just been really rewarding to be able to support people who are living with this diagnosis, engaged in meaning.
Yeah, yeah, and I absolutely love your work and I appreciate what you're doing because this is incredible. I love your account. It's your account is one of the accounts that I really love because it's clear, it's simple, but it has a powerful meaning inside. So thank you so much for that. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and now
Yeah,
maybe I can introduce myself. And
please.
yeah, so I'm Łukasz from Poland. And yeah, I'm known as Intrusive OCD memes. So after my diagnosis in 2023, I started creating memes because this was my my safe space to share my feelings in a pretty different way. But then I realized that this can be really powerful, and it can help people. It can help spreading awareness. And last year, I became IOCD advocate, and I really love what I'm doing because I know how lonely I was, how lonely I felt, and
Mhm.
I want to help people find the right the good treatment and the good therapies, and I really want to help others. So that's why I am here, and I also live streaming because I know that in a really simple way we can do something good for others.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you're making just the world of OCD and OCD more accessible. You're spreading
Yeah,
awareness, and appreciate your sentiments about our account. That's really been our focus as well. I could not do it without a team. I don't do it alone. I think you've connected with Mila Kanomos, and she is amazing and just really
yeah,
thoughtful about what she puts out. And even prior to her, worked with just some amazing folks. And so I think it's just about spreading that awareness and really helping people to just reduce that 14 to 17-year average that it can
yeah,
take to get
absolutely.
an accurate diagnosis, and treatment for OCD. It's just astounding to me that people can suffer this long for something that is so treatable. One of the treatable diagnoses. And so, thank you for the work that you're doing. I obviously, hate that you have had to live with this diagnosis, but thank you for what you are doing.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, Erin, I think we can start with our topic. So, just for your info, guys, we're really happy you are here and you joined us. Uh, but few points we have to talk. This live stream is not therapy, so remember about this. If you need help, you can reach your therapist, you can reach professional help. And also, if you will not feel good during this really hard topic, you can just go away and take deep breaths. So this is important to take care of yourselves. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we can start. If you guys have any questions, you can add this in comments or in question box down below. And yeah, Erin, grief and OCD. I think
Mm-hmm.
this is incredibly important topic to talk about, and I think first we should explain what really grief and loss is in context of OCD, because we will not be speaking only about death. Grief is something much bigger than only sadness after death and all those chaos in our heads. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that because I was hoping that we would go there just to kind of explain, typically people believe that grief is this experience that someone goes through when they experience the death of a loved one. I actually have a background in grief and loss, death and dying. Um, Prior to being in the OCD world and focusing on OCD and related disorders, I had been heavily focused on supporting children and families who had experienced the death of a loved one through bereavement
Hmm.
camps. I was a clinical director, a bereavement camp that focused on supporting children who experienced the loss of a loved one. But just, I really loved that work and just have found a way to continue that conversation in the context of other losses, right? We can
Hmm.
lose so many different things. We can lose
Yeah.
a limb, right? We can lose a pet. We can lose a job. and we can lose a relationship. It's not that someone died, but just that there's a fracture or rupture in a relationship. And with these different losses comes this emotional experience in our inner worlds, which is called grief. And so
Yeah.
grief is really just that process of mourning what we once
Mm,
had and looking back once was. And it can be an incredibly stressful experience for people, no matter what the loss is, whether it is the
yeah.
loss of a loved one. But, today's conversation is actually this loss that can happen in the context of mental and emotional well being.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, I never talked about grief and OCD on my live streams, so I had to educate myself a bit. And
You had to what?
to educate myself
Oh,
just a
great.
bit about this. And
Yeah.
yeah, I because because this is really interesting how grief and loss is connected with OCD. Because grief, when we lose something, we feel that everything is out of control.
Mhm.
Chaos in our head, and we are stressed. And at the other side is OCD that wants control everything.
Yeah.
And I think this is
Yeah.
also how these two things are strictly connect, and OCD is getting worse at
Mhm.
this tough times.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's really unfortunate. You know, I think there's two different ways to talk about this, right? We can talk about the loss and the context of having a mental health diagnosis, but then we can also talk about what happens when you do actually
Hmm.
lose something more tangible, a little bit more tangible, like a job or like a loved one, and then it tries to take over that. And so it's unfortunate when we talk about somebody experiencing the death of a family member. What I often see in my clinical practice is how, my clients, they're not able to actually grieve in the ways that they hoped that they would be able to. And I
Hmm.
mean, I think this is something that we know already about OCD in terms of how it tries it, how insidious it is and how it can try to disrupt so many different areas of a person. And unfortunately, you would think, okay, OCD, I have experienced the death of a loved one. You will at least give me a second to like go through my process and grieve and heal. But unfortunately, the diagnosis, not the individual, but the diagnosis is selfish, and it really wants the person to be focused on it and whatever it is telling the individual to do. And it can lead to the individual even catastrophizing around the
Hmm.
loss.
Yeah.
And so it's really unfortunate that people are not able to go through that healing or grieving process in a more celebratory way that they may want to mourn, or in a way that is focused on memorializing a person's memory. And so, to your point earlier, the importance of having a therapist is just so vital, so that people can actually be able to understand, like, when OCD is creeping into that grief
Yeah.
process, how to begin to identify when, you know, one's thoughts are not helpful, when they're maybe more harmful, and how to actually cope in ways that are healthy and without OCD controlling the narrative.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely agree. And also, I think that loss of someone or of something, it can be really triggering for OCD. And and there are so many traps because loss can be a huge trigger, but also stress around the loss, all those situations, we can feel like, oh, what if it was my fault? What if I didn't spend enough time with my friend or my parents and they died? What if I can't remember of them in the future or something like that? There are so many things that OCD tries to convince us, and also the high level of stress can be really impactful for our well-being during a loss, during grief.
Hmm. Yeah, it's quite frustrating for clients, and for us as therapists to witness our clients go through that, because you know as you're describing it to me, it just sounds like there can be a lot of self-blame,
Yeah,
and so much. Obviously there's fear in the context of the OCD diagnosis. But then when we talk about, having the death, experiencing the actual death of a loved one, to your point, there is this fear that, okay, I am the cause of this, or I just didn't do enough. And, when a person has experienced something to that magnitude, um, just the thought of someone having to feel blame for something like that, it's just so
yeah,
disheartening. And so, um, yeah, it's just sad, honestly. In the simplest form, it's just sad that people have to suffer that way.
yeah, because we feel guilty, we feel responsible for that loss, or and OCD try to make us control everything, but it is not possible. And I think that, we don't have to solve the loss, but we have to feel it, like all the feelings. Yeah, we are humans, and we we are able to feel our feelings. And if we understand this
Mhm.
and accept this, it will be, I know it will be hard. It will be really tough, but then we can be free from the control that OCD is trying to convince us.
Hmm. Yeah, and then, but the other side of it is, am I feeling the feelings enough? Am I sad enough? Am
Yeah,
I too sad? Should I be laughing? Should I be crying? That's the back and forth that OCD can kind of force someone to go through. And even that is just, it's like all of the questioning that comes up with any other type of OCD, right? Obviously, OCD tends to latch onto something that a person cares about, something that a person values, right? And so it's no different in this context. There
yeah.
can even be this sense of just rightness that a person is seeking even when they're grieving. And so,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. OCD is tricky, and OCD wants to use every single situation. to hit us with a really, really big, huge power. And Erin,
Mhm.
what isn't helpful when OCD hits, when we are sad, when we grieve, when we lost someone? What isn't helpful? We both know that reassurance seekings, but we can talk about this a little bit more in details.
Yeah, there can be a number of things that are unhelpful. I mean, I think the very first thing is to feel like you have to do it alone. And that's whether you have OCD or not. I think it can be a little bit of a trap to feel like you have to suffer alone. Again, whether you have OCD or you don't have OCD. In the context of OCD specifically, I think forcing yourself to go through it alone can actually be OCD kind of holding a person hostage, because oftentimes there's so much negativity when a person does have
Yeah.
OCD. OCD can kind of tell them that they are too much of a burden if
Hmm.
they open up to other people, or that they should just quickly get over their suffering or their sadness. And so, to answer your question more directly, the very first thing is to not listen the negativity that comes from OCD when it says to actually isolate. That's one very big thing to keep in
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. And what about trying to grieve perfectly? Because OCD also wants to hit this and can try to tell us that we should grieve perfectly, we shouldn't smile, we shouldn't meet our friends or enjoy our time.
Hmm.
OCD is,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I
So,
mean, what can we do in life perfectly? OCD, right? Is what I
yeah,
might
right.
suggest a client to say back to it. Maybe there's such a thing as being perfect. Maybe there isn't. Um, you know, I just think it's very concerning when a person has to even the grief process, with perfectionism. And so it's really supporting individuals in recognizing that there is no such thing as being perfect, and kind of accepting, like having that self acceptance
Yeah.
around however they decide to show up, and wherever they decide to go, and who they decide to be with, and however long they decide to cry, however long they decide to laugh or celebrate, right? That there is no such thing as being perfect or grieving perfectly, and just
Yeah.
allowing whatever emotions that come up, allowing those emotions to come up, naturally come and go, in and out like a wave. And so I think it just starts with this education, that like conversations like
Yeah.
this, that kind of helps
Yeah,
people to
and I
realize
also
it.
I
Yeah.
also know that as many individuals in this world, as many ways to go through the grief totally differently, because there are no two the same people in this world, and we can go through this with our values, but also I think this is also a good thing to not rush through this process, because if we need time, we can sit with it, we can take deep breaths, we can feel our feelings, but yeah, I know that we are able to go through a really hard things. And I realized this, I think after Chicago, that I am able to go through a really tough times. And
Mhm.
few months ago, I wasn't aware of that. But
Mhm.
we can go through grief and we can feel sad feelings and hard feelings, but it is
Mhm.
possible. And I think the same rule is here with OCD. If we are aware what is OCD and when it hits, then we can try to not engage with it.
Mhm. Yeah, and you kind of mentioned no two people going through or grieving, the same way, and how people are so different. Even culturally speaking, across cultures, there are differences in how people grieve. Some people grieve loudly, some people a solemn, quiet, inner
Yeah,
processing. And I think, you know, to underscore what you're mentioning or discussing, it's really just remembering that you don't have to compare yourself to someone else's process. You don't have to look over at someone else who has OCD or someone else that has experienced the loss of a loved one and say, well, man, this is how they're grieving having OCD, or this is how they're grieving losing their spouse or their parent, and they seem to be handling this, very stoically. And so I must be doing something wrong. Something must be wrong with me. I think that can also happen with people as well.
yeah. This is. I think this is the wrong thinking that I have feel something this way or that way. I have do
Mhm.
something like others people do, but it is not the point. We are individuals. We can go through problems totally different than other people. And also, when people are comparing their OCD subtypes, that, for example, suicidal OCD is much worse than ROCD or much worse than something else.
Yeah.
This is not the point. OCD is OCD. OCD also is a spectrum, but also uh, ev- every topic, every OCD subtype is the worst for the person
Mhm.
who goes through this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I actually do have clients that will come in and say, "Oh, I would like my life would just be so much easier if I had their
Yeah.
type." Especially clients that have taboo types of OCD. They sometimes believe that, oh, if I just had contamination OCD, it would be easier. And it's like, no, no, it's a
Mhm.
challenge, for no matter what type it is. And, um, everyone is suffering in their own way, you know?
Mm, yeah, absolutely. Um, Erin, what would be the advice for people who are going through this at the moment?
Mhm. 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 Yeah.
I know this
Um,
is not simple, and I know that depends of many, many things, but let's
no,
try.
no, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I just think so. We talked about not feeling like you have to isolate, right? Some other pieces of it include just recognizing if you feel like you are being carried away by the grief process to the point where you're not functioning well. Another piece of advice, is for loved ones of those experiencing a loss, whether it be the actual loss of a loved one or,
Hmm.
you know, someone going through, the loss from a mental health diagnosis like OCD is to just be mindful of the loved one's experience. And if you notice major changes in your loved one, helping them to get support from a mental health professional, because um, sometimes people will allow themselves to stay in prolonged stress or distress, where they don't have to stay in it, in the loss and in the grief, or, being aware of if it's becoming depression. And I think, noticing that for yourself, but then hopefully there are loved ones that can also pay attention to the individual with lived
Hmm.
experience who is also going through that loss. I think another one, I think at some point you actually did a self compassion live stream. And so that would be another piece of advice, is to open up space
Yeah.
for showing your self compassion about what you're going through, because it's an incredibly difficult thing to have OCD. And so compassion is so huge when you are grappling with, oh my goodness, this is something that I'm going to have to live with, for the rest of my
Mm.
life. There is no
Yeah.
cure for OCD, unfortunately. And so, really opening up space for how you may, at different phases of your life, oscillate back and forth between, being sad about it, being frustrated about it, feeling acceptance around it, and then going back and forth, that there's, again, no wrong or right way. And so that compassion piece allows for the emotions to show
Mhm.
up as they choose
Yeah.
to.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Absolutely. Totally agree with you. Self-compassion is something incredibly important. Just knowing that we can be kind to ourselves and we can be kind to our mind and be self-compassionate can change a lot of things.
Hmm. Hmm.
And and one point from me also is because I know that OCD likes to hit when our nervous system is overstimulated, overwhelmed. When I am sick, it is much easier for my OCD to go through my, yeah, to my shelf, yeah,
Hmm.
and also when I have a lot of stress at work, it is also the same situation. And if we will be aware of that when someone die or when we lose a relationship with someone, we will be also overwhelmed, and our nervous system will be overwhelmed, overstimulated. And if we know that, it will be easier to see that OCD is trying to, knock, knock, what if? And
Hmm.
it will be much easier to not engage with this.
Hmm. Yeah, so being aware of internal and external that can
Yeah.
happen from everyday life. Absolutely. Yeah. You also
Yeah.
mentioned something earlier. I don't remember exactly what you shared, but it just kind of reminded me of how sometimes in my sessions, as a way to promote that self compassion, I'll just
Mhm.
say to my clients, you did not choose to have this diagnosis. You didn't wake up one day and say to your higher power, hey, please diagnose me with OCD. And oftentimes I'll say, or, you wouldn't choose, to wish having OCD on your worst enemy. And so, just being really gentle with one's self, no matter what the thoughts are, no matter what emotional experience they're going through as a result of, the losses that one can experience. I think is just helpful to remember.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm absolutely happy that we were able to talk about this because I hope that we can help someone. And guys, if you have any questions for Erin, you can write this down here. I saw one question, mm, and I think it is for you about how they can contact you. I think the best way is through Instagram. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Feel free to reach out to us through our handles at OCD Set Free. So OCD SETFREE. And then we have at the Kaleidoscope. You can send us a direct message through either of those
Yeah,
handles.
yeah.
Hmm.
So, guys, if you have no questions, I will share this live stream absolutely after when we finish. I will share this, and you can watch this later. And feel free to contact us, to contact Erin, to contact ERP Kaleidoscope and OCD Set Free,
Hmm.
or me,
Yeah.
meme maker. Yeah, I'm not specialist. I'm not specialist. I'm not therapist. But when I can help in some way, I will do this with pleasure.
Yeah.
But remember, if you need professional help, go to your therapist, go to professional specialist.
Yeah, and you have experienced loss, right? And so your voice can be meaningful. It is meaningful and it is helpful to people who have experienced loss, whether it be because, again, of mental illness or the actual loss of a loved one. I think that's what unites us. When I
Mhm. Yeah.
used to work in bereavement camps, that was the thing that was so healing, is to find community where people actually understand what it's like to experience the exact same thing. And so I'm just grateful for spaces like this and grateful for you because you are, a big support to this community and you have so much to offer. I'm sure you know that.
Thank you so much for that. That means a lot to me. And I realized after Chicago, when I met so many amazing people in real life, that this community is absolutely special.
It is. It is definitely, and that's why, especially on the air side, we really just try to foster that sense of community because so often it can be hard for people to find spaces, believe it or not, even in the modern world and the digital world. Like people are still struggling and they feel so alone. And even, when I get clients that come into therapy, they often say, "Oh, I've never met anybody that has OCD." And so that's why spaces like this are so, so vital.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope this is not our last live stream, that we will be able to
Never.
do the next one in 12 months, maybe. Who knows?
Maybe the next one can be from a plane. Are you going to go skydiving again?
Or we can live stream directly from Seattle.
Maybe.
Maybe. Who knows? Thank you so much, Erin, for this amazing conversation, and I can't wait to see you again.
Likewise, likewise. Thank you so much for having me. It was So good to
Yeah.
see you again.
Bye bye. Have a nice day.
Bye. You too.